Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
What is up?
Good
Good morning. Good morning.
morning.
All having a good day. We are therapy dudes. Dan Fox, Andre Kargamaz, and
You nailed it. I mean,
I,
there was
kn-
more eyes, but you nailed it.
I
You did.
nailed it. I nailed it. That's awesome. I'm gonna give myself some applause. Thank
You're
you.
getting there.
Thank you.
You're doing it.
And we're here after a short hiatus, beginning of summer, little break, getting back on track. It's not even quite the summer for most people, but today is my kid's last day of school.
Oh,
Andre, I'm in a transition where I go from
into what?
having nobody at home during the day
Uh-huh.
and I can, Zoom on my work calls and go about the day working on the house and all that. And I'm in peace. And now I'm gonna have children in the house every day and my wife. And I'm not sure how I think about it. Usually summer vacation is like less of a vacation for me because everybody's home all the time. So
Okay.
when I'm on break, I go out into the space and they're all there
Yeah, yeah.
and they're wanting stuff from me,
That's the problem, is there's always something they want.
right? So I decided to flip the script.
Okay. What'd you do? You're gonna always want something from them?
We've got boot camp. We've got boot camp starting.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Tell me about it.
Well, here's the text message I sent.
Oh, goodness.
I sent this on Sunday to the two kids that are already off of school.
Okay.
It says, "Welcome to summer boot camp. It starts tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Boot camp involves two things each day that must happen before screen time. One,
Hmm.
walk or jog a mile. This could be done on a treadmill, a trail, or walking to work.
Okay.
Two, 2 hours of work. If you have a job, the job will count if you are working that day. If you do not have a job, I will designate a job to complete around the house.
Oh,
Tomorrow's job is to clean your room and put away the laundry that is clean in the laundry room. If you need help with this job, let me know. Once you have completed the tasks for boot camp each day, check in with me, and if everything is done properly, you'll be able to go about your day. Please let me know if you have any questions."
wow. That was you sounded like you were an employer.
Yes, no, that's my plan. I'm happy to give them a small stipend for work that's beyond their normal tasks, right? I'm not going to give them a small stipend for like cleaning their room, but doing the yard work
Okay. You
or
think 2 hours a day they can fill? You really think so?
oh, I can fill 2 hours a day.
Well, I
Two
know you,
hours. 2 hours is nothing.
but of work?
Yeah, clean the cars, clean the garage, sand and stain the side of the house.
Wow.
No problem.
Yeah.
We got to take down the chicken coop. We got lots of projects going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss around the chicken recently.
Chickens. We lost
Oh, you lost all of them?
we lost three in a 6 day period.
Oh,
There's
geez.
still one left, Irene, but she's gonna get adopted because they do better in a flock. They're social creatures. So
Right.
yeah,
Oh
she's
God, poor
moving in.
Irene. She's traumatized.
Yes, she is traumatized.
Weasels are the worst.
I can't they can get through a hole the size of a quarter. That's crazy.
That is really crazy.
Um, yeah, I did not realize how how tight my coop needed to be because we've had chickens for like probably 10 years at this point, 11
Wow.
years. Um, and never had a weasel problem before the other day. But
Until I came into your life.
oh yes, you're the weasel.
Okay, so uh do you feel like this summer is going to be one of those summers that feels like you got a lot
to impose on the kids because
Right? I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. I think that today's theme,
hmm
how to have a good summer with your
Okay.
family, right? That's, you know, that's a big question. Is like what kind of tone do you want to start? How do you kind of, have some good intentions? What are some goals for the summer? And I feel like the boot camp is going to last 1 to 2 weeks before it deteriorates entirely. I was shocked though. Yesterday, I came downstairs and my son was doing dishes.
Wow.
I know. And I was like, whoa, you're doing dishes. That's amazing. Thank you. He goes, well, you told me to clean my room. And I was like, I don't know if you know this, but this is the kitchen. Your room's upstairs. And he was like, I know, but I have dishes in my room and there's no space for them because the dishwasher's clean.
Oh,
I have to empty the dishwasher first. And I was like, this is like the magic is happening for this 18-year-old. He's like recognizing that there's an impact that he creates on the house and that sometimes there's things like emptying the dishwasher that ultimately, he should have a proportional involvement in and just help out occasionally without even being asked. It's like stunning.
wow.
Yeah.
Why did it take so long? What's wrong with you that he doesn't know this?
Are you kidding? He's only 18. What are you talking about?
That's the energy I get from a lot of parents I work with. Like, they should know, they should do these things. How come they don't get this understanding right away? And, even in a family where they're led by you, who's a therapist, they still can't do this sometimes.
Well, one of my four children was born with both the awareness and the discipline. And she, from a very young age, was, able to just kind of contribute like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I think that,
You think it's a temperament thing? Like biological? Like people are just biologically more prone to empathy or care or whatever the hell we're talking about here exactly?
right, I think it's a temperament thing, but I also think it's like an awareness thing in terms of like some people when they're just kind of like in early childhood, they might be focused on things like, oh, like, look, those are cars. What do cars look like? What are the names of cars? Oh, these are like birds. Like one of my daughters really is into birds. Like just kind of naturally learned about all the birds and all the like things that were like moving creatures in the outside and would just like pick up potato bugs and earwigs and stuff like that and just kind of, learn all about them. And,
Hmm.
some people might just be more visual and notice color, and some people might be more sort of like numerical and notice shapes. And this is just something that our mind will kind of naturally have an affinity towards. So if somebody happens to be like, I'm going to notice like expressions on people's faces and just naturally be curious about, what they mean and, how they're thinking and feeling, which is, one of my children, then they just have a remarkable capacity to sort of have that universal awareness and understand what's going on for people because they've just been sort of naturally doing it their whole life. So,
Right.
now she's 15 and she's just like, super emotionally intelligent, right? As they would say. Um, but like my kiddo that, spent a lot of spare time playing like supply chain optimization video games,
I've heard of these. These are
building things.
popular.
What's that?
Yeah. These are
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually talked to somebody. He's 25. He was at basketball, right? We were
Okay.
we were talking to him about whether he was getting enraged the other day. Remember on
Oh, right.
Tuesday, right? Right. He's
Got that
25
demeanor. Yeah.
and he has a supply chain optimization job. That's what he's like doing is like helping companies with like getting their supply chain as efficient as possible. I'm like, wow, you must have been quite a gamer in your youth.
There's this game called Factorio that a lot of my clients are playing.
I've
It's the
heard of
same
it.
thing.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've never played any of these things because I don't have the time or the inclination. I like to play my little card game on the phone or something.
Yeah.
Um, I have
You love
spare
your
time,
little addiction.
right? Or I read books, which
Right.
I had my goal this year of reading 12 books. I'm slightly
Nice.
behind. Um, but the trick I think is that, for kiddos where they're not naturally just going, huh, look at the space in this house. What's dirty? What's clean? Where should these things go? Right? That's not a very common thing for a little kid to be focused on just automatically. So we as like parents, that's something that just comes across our mind constantly, right?
Yeah.
If a kid's like, "Oh, I've gotten home from soccer," and they're just like, "Ah, I want to get all my soccer stuff off," and they just like throw it on the floor. It's not like they're going, "Oh, I'm putting this stuff on the floor. Later on, I'm going to have to clean this up." Well, I don't want to clean it up, so I'm just going to make somebody else clean it up. Like that's not their consciousness. It's like, I got to get this stuff off as fast as possible. It's uncomfortable. I want to jump on my screen and go talk to my friends.
Right.
So for us to be like, actually, we'll explain this to you once, and then your mind will forever focus on your dirty socks on the living room floor and always get them up, is like a terrible misunderstanding of how the brain actually works. Right? Like us as parents just trying to like draw our kids' attention to something one time or even 100 times is nothing compared to the mind's like natural inclinations and the motivations that they have developmentally at that age. So we
Right.
can persist and we can set rules and consequences, but the idea that, hey, we talked about this yesterday and now you've done it again today is a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's based on
The
thinking
developmental
that,
stages.
right, it's missing that there's developmental stages and that there's developmental learning in those stages. So developmental learning is different than insight learning. Like if you have your child bike to school after like 3 times, they're going to know how to get to school, right? They're going to know the route. And it's
Mhm.
not like they're going to get to an intersection a month into it and be like, which way do I go? And go off the path because it's an insight, right? It gets like wired in. It's like basic knowledge. A developmental learning is something where there's some tension, where our focus or our emotions are on something else.
Mm.
And we're being told, no, we have to like grow an inclination to do this thing instead.
Right.
So if we're like, I really want to jump on a screen to see my friend, and that's all we're thinking about,
Yeah.
to be like, well, I told you you couldn't do that until everything in the downstairs area of yours was cleaned up. That's like trying
In
to,
one ear and out the other.
right. It's like, if somebody told me like I need to memorize the types of cars and the color of the houses in my neighborhood that all my neighbors have,
Hmm.
I would be like, oh my God, you're killing me. Like, are you kidding? Like, that's just not what my brain
It's not
focuses
going to
on,
happen.
right? I've lived here for like 20 years and I still like would have a hard time being able to tell you, like, okay, the neighbor's house is this color. This is their car. Like, this is the color of their car. It just isn't
It's
on my
hard. I mean,
radar.
sometimes I forget what you look like if you're gone for too long. So I get it.
Right. No, I know it's easy to do, and you've been
Start going
preoccupied.
up to random people. Are you Dan? I
Yeah.
forgot. Um, you know, what this really makes me think about is like a few things like control. Like parents often want to control development in their kids. They
Yeah.
want to see progress in a way that feels right to them. And I don't know if people realize this, but like the way society is structured and the schools are structured and the way we're living our lives is not actually conducive of everyone's experience being on track or whatever that looks like, right? Like as a grown ass man, I've dealt with a lot of stress in recent times, and let me tell you, I mean, you've witnessed this yourself. There are people that will come up and be like, "Hey, you know what? Just focus on this. This is better to focus on, right?"
Yeah,
And with all the good intentions, but it doesn't matter how, you know, well trained we are, even if there is something going on internally that feeds that intrinsic motivation towards something else or towards rumination, or you can't intervene and have that person change. They gotta be able to like take their time to understand why this is happening. What you can do is attune with them, validate, and help them see like, hey, we can do this. How can we do this and that at the same time? How can we, I
right.
don't know, it's like allying, right?
And it's like they have muscle memory, so to speak, although it's on the brain level, right, for a certain way of orbiting or focusing.
Yes.
So
We're wired that way, yeah.
to to change that would be similar to like having somebody learn how to juggle or learn how to play a new musical instrument, where it's like you can't just be like, hey, like this is how you play this song on the keyboard, dun 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 dun, and then the next day be like, what? I told you yesterday how to do this. Like
Yeah.
that would be incredible. Like nobody does that with their, like we get on a certain level that that kind of thing isn't easily transmitted, but somehow a lot of other things in terms of behaviors or focuses or things that we want our kids to be doing, we kind of assume, oh, I tell them once, this will be fine. So if we get back to like summer boot camp, right? I read you the first day's text message about summer boot camp. I've
Right.
talked to them every day about summer boot camp, and I've sent them a message every day about summer boot camp so that they can start to get this practice where I'm at the beginning of the day, just kind of bring their awareness to, hey, I'm going to be a pain until you actually are like tending to these things each day. I want you to be physically active and I want you to do 2 hours of some kind of productive work in addition to whatever else is going on in their summer, right? And for that to happen,
Hmm.
it's not at all sufficient that I've done this for like 4 days now, right? It doesn't that doesn't matter. If I drop it, they'll drop it. And then if I pick it back up a week later and I'm like, why aren't you doing this? This is all your fault. It's like, no, it's not really like I could come up with some sufficiently painful consequence that it would sting enough or they'd be scared enough that
Yeah,
they might do it, but that
I've
is a
never seen that work.
terrible, right? It's a terrible system to get into of like, make your kids fear you or hate you because you're being such an obstruction in their life, right? Like
Mhm.
that's not how this is gonna work.
You
But if
want to
I
get it to be intrinsically motivating. You want to ally them. You want to make them understand why this is good for them.
And I just want to give them a lot of practice so that the muscle memory builds for this kind of thing, right? If I want them to sort of be able to kind of focus on this, we have to practice it a lot. So I have to just kind of, bop in there each day and be like, hey, when are you going to do this? What's going on with your exercise today? What's your work stuff? Oh, you don't have any? Cool. I've got 2 hours. When are we going to set that up? What time of day are we going to do that? And I've got to be on point. So my opportunity when they're home for the summer, instead of just being like, oh no, they're home for the summer, they're going to interrupt my free time. It's like, oh, I can kind of instill these things that I feel like are developmentally appropriate for my kids because they're all between age 13 and 20 at this point. I think they can all, take on some additional responsibilities, each in their own way, right? The 20-year-old's going to be different than the 13-year-old. But I want them to have to relate to some kind of structure and not have this idea that I can just sleep in until noon and then get on my screen for 12 hours and then act all hot and bothered if I come by and ask them to like put their dishes in the sink. Like that's not that's not going to fly. And it's not going to get fixed by me yelling at them once either, right? Like this needs to be very persistent.
Yeah.
There's there's an extraordinary difference between the school bell and the slot machine, right? This is this is actually just two options for how we parent, right? If we parent around boundaries like a school bell, it's amazing. The school bell rings and like 600 middle schoolers get up and go to their next class. And they do it every time. The reason why they do it every time is because the school bell is always just incredibly consistent. It's been
Consistent.
happening for years and years, and
Right.
there's no exception. You're having a bad
So,
day, the school bell still rings. We're
right.
doing something fun. Oh, sorry, the school bell just rang. It's time to go to the next. It,
Becomes a social norm that everyone kind of acclimates to because everyone's doing it at school.
yeah, and it's super, super consistent,
Yeah.
right? The way we tend to parent with boundaries isn't so consistent. We're more like a slot machine where sometimes the kids get a payoff because we're not paying attention, and sometimes they get like dinged. And oftentimes we just sort of like hit it in a low level way a bunch of times, and then we get frustrated and we come down like a hammer. And that kind of inconsistency doesn't help either. It just teaches them that there's this porous boundary. And if you want your kid to like fixate on the boundary and keep trying to like, see if it actually works and violate it sometimes, just be inconsistent and they'll be on it forever.
It's a lot of pressure to be consistent all the time and catch everything all the time.
Um,
And
I
being
think the
a there,
alternative is worse,
yeah.
right? Like there's certain things that we've been consistent with them about. You get in the car, you put on your seatbelt. Most kids have that down by the time they're like, 7, 8. They've stopped moaning about it. But for years early on, they're like, oh, no, my seatbelt, nah, right? And it just is kind of, periodically annoying, unless they're wired temperamentally, like my third child, to be compliant and in sync with you,
Hmm.
right? Some kids really like that, and they want the rules and the structure. And 25%, according to my personal field study.
I think structure and consistency is key here. I also just like when I think about summer, I think about all the like parents that start to think about like I need to get them locked in this summer. And as a kid, when I thought about summer, I was like, I'm finally free. I can go do whatever I want.
Yes.
That conflict, like, how are they receiving this so far? Like, how are they? It's only been 4 days, but like, are they
Right.
pushing back? Is it going well?
Right. Well, all right. I'm going to answer this, and then we'll take a break, and hit podcast number 2 on this theme, and then I'm going to ask these questions about you and your kids and your plan.
Okay.
Um, so the two older ones, right, who are the only ones that are on it currently, because the other two, today's their last day of school, so their boot camp starts tomorrow, right? The two older ones have I would say it's like a surface compliance approach, right? They're not going to actively protest it like my 13-year-old will, right? They're just going to be like, okay, like my oldest daughter just, texts back a thumbs up or stuff like that when she like sees the message. Does she actually do it? Kind of, kind
Oh,
of.
good.
They've both been claiming that they've been, working on their room and getting it in order and, getting organizational stuff in place. And my son had a couple of other extra things that he had to do. He was sick, so that, knocked out 2 days. Um, I made him take a practice AP test yesterday as his structured activity. Because today he actually had to go back in, even though he's technically graduated high school, we had to go back in and take an AP test. Um, so they're I think they're gonna basically they're playing the long game, right? They're assuming that I'm gonna just like break down and forget and stop trying this, and then they can just go back to their regular structure. And I will let it go for them once they both have a job and they're plugged in because that's their like stated goal. And this whole process gets much easier if you have a job where you're getting paid to do something outside the house because that counts as your work for the day.
Okay.
Um, the two younger kids, one is the one that's just, likes the structure, is temperamentally just, going to be compliant. And the 13-year-old, well, he's going to be the trickiest one. He's going to be the squirmer. So we'll see how that goes. We'll check in again a little later. In a couple of weeks, ask me if boot camp's still going
Okay.
on. I'm
You
sure it will
got
have deteriorated to nothing. All right, let's wrap. We're going to come back and talk about your family and your summer plans.
it. Okay.
Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, comment.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes. Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. Listen to them anytime you're